Did you know that astronauts experience loss of consciousness in the first 10 seconds after takeoff? Your answer is probably no, and yes, you are not alone. I didn't know either until I researched this. G-force, that is, due to the force applied to your body during acceleration, your body weight is felt 4 times more than normal. It becomes extremely difficult to even move your arm while stuck in your seat. G-force pushes blood towards feet, whereas in order not to lose consciousness, blood must go to the brain. And of course, it's not limited to that. One of the first complaints of astronauts after takeoff is nausea and vomiting. The low gravity in the inner ear balances the balance, coordination, affects the sense of direction and the ability to follow moving objects. It is a very dangerous event, such as causing vomit in a space capsule to fly in the air. One of the complaints of astronauts is a stuffy nose. Being in space creates a feeling similar to being on your head. Fluids begin to accumulate in the upper part of the body. This is the reason for the swelling on the face. For example, swelling of the feet on long trips. The body prefers to draw the fluid towards the upper part. Due to the decrease in gravity, this tendency becomes stronger and swelling occurs in the tissues. In addition, astronauts' vision is impaired. The reason for this is not yet known, and since there is no gravity, the body starts to deteriorate. Gravity is very important for the health of organs. In experiments on rats, a loss of 1/3 of some muscles is observed within 7–10 days, which is a major deterioration. There is also deterioration in the heart muscle. If you're going to stay on the space station, maybe it's not such a big deal. But for example, if you are going to land on Mars, the astronaut will not have to walk. For this reason, all astronauts have to do cardiovascular and weightlifting exercises for 1 hour every day in order to maintain their body health. Even then, astronauts have trouble walking when they land 6 months later. Another danger of the lack of gravity is that it also leads to melting of the bones. This also means that a large amount of calcium enters the blood. And you guessed it, the astronauts' light-the-dark cycle has been completely turned upside down. They have difficulty sleeping. They have trouble adjusting to artificial nights, especially as they witness a new sunrise every 90 minutes while in orbit around the Earth. Actually, this is a very difficult time. It is also not easy to sleep in a sleeping bag attached to the wall. To mitigate the effects of this, dimmable sleep compartments were created for astronauts. A new LED lighting system is being tested to break the harshness of artificial light. Space travel, which adorns our dreams, has extremely negative effects on the immune system. Experiments on animals have shown that the ability of white blood cells to fight microbes decreases in space. Again, this is caused by the lack of gravity. More problematic is the radiation in space. Astronauts describe witnessing bursts of bright light in space. The space station is kept in orbit a little closer to the Earth's atmosphere to shield it from these rays. Unfortunately, long trips to the Moon or Mars expose astronauts to radiation hazards. However, what will surprise most of us is that long-term studies on astronauts have shown that their cancer risk is not higher. For this, a study conducted in 2010 examined the stress caused by isolation in long-term space flights, where 6 people were kept in a test environment in Moscow for 520 days as if they were traveling to and from Mars. Although there was no problem on the way back, there was more trouble on the way back to Earth. There was conflict between people, experts. It focuses on the psychological problems caused by traveling in a closed and narrow tin can flying in the endless vacuum of space. It is emphasized that mental health is as important as physical health. Therefore, choosing the right astronauts is of great importance. Another thought that confuses people is whether it is longer until they return to Earth. I seem to see short people smiling right now, but it's not really good. Because gravity doesn't push you down, the fluid-filled discs between each of the bony vertebrae in your spine are not compressed and flex your height by about 3%. Scott Kelly turned 5 centimeters taller than his twin brother after spending time in space. But returning to Earth like gravity reverses this effect, so your muscles can shrink. You don't need muscles when you're weightless. Therefore, they atrophy and absorb excess tissue. To unpack and briefly describe atrophy is the subsequent shrinkage of a normal-sized organ. That's why physical exercise is part of every astronaut's program. However, nothing no better able to protect muscle mass than the strain experienced by gravity at the Earth's surface. Your genetic code behaves differently. DNA, it's the basic blueprint of life, and genes, much like words in a cookbook, spell out special recipes to keep us alive. With this, equally important is when and how much these genes are expressed or turned on or off. Most of them are related to one's environment. The real-world implications of this are still being investigated. And if you are going to go to space one day, perhaps the most important thing you will take with you is a spacesuit. Spacesuits are like a small spacecraft and protect astronauts from dangers in outer space. Oxygen cylinders in the part of the spacesuit, which is seen as a backpack and called the primary life support system. The spacesuits used on the International Space Station today remain there permanently, so not every astronaut has a unique spacesuit. According to assignments from the Ground Control Center, the same spacesuit can be worn by several astronauts. As you can imagine, not every astronaut's physical build is the same. Some astronauts are tall, some are short, some may be a little weaker or overweight. That's why there are 3 different sizes of spacesuits that astronauts use on the International Space Station. Since the attachment points of these spacesuits are the same, an astronaut can also make a special combination from these 3 different bodies if she wants. The temperature in the space environment is unfortunately too high or low for the human body to withstand. For example, in space where the sun shines brightly, if an astronaut going out on a spacewalk comes out of the spacecraft without a spacesuit, she will suddenly encounter a temperature of about 120 degrees Celsius with the effect of radiation. In the absence of the sun, the temperature drops to about minus 120 degrees Celsius. This happens very, very suddenly, since there is no atmosphere in space. The only thing keeping the astronauts safe in these harsh conditions is the spacesuit. Water passage provided by special channels inside the spacesuit, resembling a vein structure. It helps to balance the body temperature of the astronaut. Besides temperature differences, the astronaut's pressure, in order to be protected from radiation and meteor dust, she must wear a spacesuit. Meteor dusts are tiny bits and particles of rock that orbit the Earth. How is a tiny dust going to harm an astronaut? You might think. Meteor dust moves around the Earth's orbit at a speed of about 24,000 kilometers per hour. Therefore, when any small particle hits the astronaut, it can cause much greater damage than you can imagine. So on the top of the spacesuit, the so-called hard upper body has a shield of protection similar to the structure of bulletproof vests. Thanks to this shield, astronauts are protected from the deadly threats of meteor dust. Peoples, it is thought that they can survive for up to 2 minutes in space with stations in Earth orbit without spacesuits. Of course, this does not mean that you can comfortably live in space for 2 minutes without protective clothing. It just means that your death will take an average of 2 minutes. But more importantly, if you take off your astronaut clothes, you will immediately start to freeze and swell. You'll explode and die. It shows that her claim is a general misconception. So, contrary to the claim, if you try to stay in space without your astronaut suit, you will not explode. Your right and left do not swell exaggeratedly. You cannot turn instantly. But you can't live happily ever after. Let's end our video with a nice word. Earth is the cradle of humanity, but humanity cannot stay in the cradle forever.